Elon Musk versus Wall Street: How Tesla's greatest crisis became a global revolution. The heart of Manhattan pulsed with predatory confidence. Glass towers pierced the New York skyline like steel daggers, cutting through the morning mist. Inside those gleaming corporate fortresses, Wall Street titans gathered around mahogany tables, their eyes gleaming with the cold calculation of hunters who had cornered their prey. Tesla, the electric car company that dared to challenge the gods of gasoline, was bleeding to death, and they could smell the blood in the water. In the sterile conference rooms of Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and J.P. Morgan Chase, analysts shuffled through financial reports with the satisfaction of grave diggers, measuring Tesla's coffin. Charts and graphs painted a picture of inevitable doom. Production delays, mounting debt, a CEO who seemed to be losing his grip on reality. The numbers didn't lie. Tesla was hemorrhaging $300 million every quarter, with no end in sight. Tesla will be bankrupt by Christmas, whispered one senior analyst, his voice carrying the authority of a man who had predicted dozens of corporate deaths. Musk's electric fantasy is about to become America's most expensive graveyard. The short sellers, those financial vultures who profit from corporate collapse, had placed their bets with surgical precision. Billions of dollars wagered against Tesla's survival. Each negative headline, each production delay, each whisper of doubt, drove the stock price lower, padding their wallets with blood money extracted from Musk's dying dream. Jim Chanos, the legendary short seller known as the Assassin of Wall Street, held court in his Manhattan office, surrounded by monitors displaying Tesla's declining stock price in real time. "This is the biggest single stock bubble I've ever seen," he declared to a room full of eager financial journalists. Tesla is a car company, not a tech company, and car companies don't trade at these valuations without eventually crashing back to earth. But 3,000 miles away, in a sprawling factory in Fremont, California, a different kind of war was being fought, not with spreadsheets and stock prices, but with sweat, steel, and an almost supernatural refusal to surrender. The Tesla Gigafactory stood like a monument to impossible ambition, its massive concrete walls housing the dreams of an electric revolution. But inside those walls, in the pre-dawn hours of June 2018, the atmosphere was thick with desperation. The production line, which should have been humming with the precise choreography of mass manufacturing, instead stuttered and stalled like a dying heartbeat. Elon Musk moved through the factory floor like a ghost haunting his own funeral. His usually immaculate appearance had given way to rumpled clothes, unshaven stubble, and the hollow eyes of a man who hadn't slept in days. The smell of motor oil and hot metal filled his nostrils, mixing with the acrid taste of failure that seemed to coat everything in the facility. "We're producing 2,000 Model 3s per month," his production manager reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need 5,000 to survive. At this rate, we'll be out of cash in 10 months. The Model 3. Tesla's make-or-break vehicle, the car that was supposed to bring electric transportation to the masses, had become a monument to manufacturing hell. Every day brought new crises. Robots that couldn't handle the precision required for battery installation. Software glitches that shut down entire production lines. Quality control issues that sent hundreds of cars back for costly repairs. In the depths of the factory, exhausted engineers slumped over their workstations, their eyes red from staring at computer screens, their hands stained with grease from manual repairs that should have been automated. Coffee cups grew cold, forgotten in the chaos of crisis management. The usual chatter of a busy workplace had been replaced by tense whispers, worried conversations about severance packages and job prospects in a suddenly uncertain future. Maria Gonzalez, a battery technician who had left her job at General Motors to join Tesla's revolution, stood at her station with tears in her eyes. "My kids ask me every night if Mama's company is going to disappear," she confided to her supervisor during a brief break. "I don't know what to tell them anymore. I believed in this dream, but maybe dreams aren't enough." Meanwhile, 3 time zones away, the financial assassination was reaching fever pitch. CNBC's morning show featured a panel of experts dissecting Tesla's quarterly earnings, their voices dripping with schadenfreude as they outlined the company's path to bankruptcy. Tesla burned through $800 million in the last quarter alone, announced the lead analyst, his tone suggesting he was discussing a terminal cancer diagnosis. "At this burn rate, they'll be filing for Chapter 11 by year's end." The Wall Street Journal's front page bore the headline, "Tesla's production hell, Musk's electric dreams hit reality." Bloomberg Television ran a countdown clock, measuring the days until Tesla's predicted insolvency. Social media exploded with memes and jokes, turning Musk's struggles into entertainment for the financial elite. But the cruelest weapon in Wall Street's arsenal wasn't numbers or analysis, it was doubt. Doubt whispered into the ears of Tesla's suppliers, causing them to demand payment up front. Doubt spread through the ranks of Tesla's workforce, causing talented engineers to update their resumes. Doubt crept into the minds of early Tesla customers, causing them to cancel orders and switch to traditional automakers. The psychological warfare was relentless. Anonymous sources leaked stories about chaos in Tesla's management, about Musk's erratic behavior, about secret meetings with bankruptcy attorneys. Every leak was amplified by financial media hungry for clicks and confirmation of their predictions. The narrative was set. Tesla was dying, and Elon Musk was the delusional captain of a sinking ship. In his Fremont factory office, at 3 a.m, Musk stared at his phone screen, reading the latest wave of attacks on his character and his company. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion and rage. Outside his window, the factory floor sprawled in semi-darkness, illuminated only by the emergency lighting and the occasional spark from a welding station where night shift workers continued their desperate battle against time. The decision that would change everything came not in a boardroom, but on the factory floor itself. At 4:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late June, Musk made a choice that would become legend in Silicon Valley folklore. He walked to his car, retrieved a sleeping bag from the trunk, and set up his bed right next to the Model 3 production line. "If my people are working through the night," he announced to his stunned management team, "then I'm working through the night. If they're sleeping on the floor, I'm sleeping on the floor. We either save this company together, or we go down together." The symbolism was unmistakable. This wasn't corporate theater or a publicity stunt. This was a CEO choosing to share the hardship of his workers, to literally embed himself in the struggle for survival. Within hours, word of Musk's sleeping bag had spread through every corner of the factory, igniting something that had been dormant in the hearts of Tesla's workforce. Production manager Sarah Chen, who had been considering resignation just days earlier, found herself working 18-hour shifts with renewed purpose. "When I saw Elon sleeping next to the robots," she later recalled, "something clicked inside me. This wasn't just a job anymore, it was a mission. We weren't just building cars, We were building the future. The factory floor became a 24-hour battlefield. Engineers who had never touched a wrench found themselves elbow-deep in machinery, their PhD degrees forgotten as they wrestled with the physical reality of manufacturing. Software developers became quality control inspectors. Marketing executives learned to install door panels. The traditional corporate hierarchy dissolved in the crucible of shared desperation. But Wall Street wasn't finished with its assault. As news of Musk's factory floor sleeping arrangement leaked to the media, the attacks intensified. Musk's breakdown, CEO sleeps in factory as Tesla crumbles, screamed the headlines. Financial analysts appear on television, questioning Musk's mental stability, suggesting that his behavior proved Tesla was in its death throes. This is not the behavior of a rational CEO, declared one prominent analyst on CNBC. This is the behavior of a man who has lost touch with reality. Tesla's board should remove him immediately before he destroys what's left of the company. The short sellers smelled blood. They increased their positions, betting even more heavily against Tesla's survival. Option traders purchased millions of dollars in put contracts, financial instruments that would pay out handsomely when Tesla's stock price collapsed. The financial press began preparing obituaries, drafting articles about the spectacular failure of Silicon Valley's most ambitious electric car company. But something unexpected was happening on the factory floor in Fremont. The presence of their CEO, sleeping in a thin sleeping bag beside the production line, had awakened something primal in Tesla's workforce. They began working with the intensity of soldiers defending their homeland, because in a very real sense, that's exactly what they were doing. James Rodriguez, a maintenance technician who had worked in automotive manufacturing for 20 years, described the transformation. "I've worked for Ford, GM, Chrysler, but I've never seen anything like this. People were pushing themselves beyond what should be humanly possible. Mothers with young children working double shifts. Engineers sleeping in their cars in the parking lot so they could be back on the line in 4 hours. It was like we were all possessed by the same spirit." The breakthrough came not through revolutionary technology or sudden inspiration, but through the grinding persistence of human will multiplied by collective purpose. Musk identified the bottleneck that was strangling Model 3 production, a complex battery pack assembly process that had been over-engineered to the point of paralysis. Working alongside his engineers, sleeping less than 3 hours per night, he redesigned the entire system in real time. Scrap the robots, he ordered during a 2 a.m. production meeting, his voice hoarse from constant use. "We'll do it manually. It's not elegant, but elegant doesn't matter if we're bankrupt. What matters is cars rolling off the line." They tore out millions of dollars worth of sophisticated automation equipment, replacing it with simple manual assembly stations. It was less futuristic, less impressive to visitors, but it worked. Production rates began to climb, slowly at first, then with gathering momentum that sent shock waves through both the factory and the financial markets. The psychological transformation of the workforce was as dramatic as the mechanical changes to the production line. Workers who had been demoralized by months of failure began to see daily improvements. Small victories accumulated into larger successes. The atmosphere in the factory shifted from desperation to determination, from fear to fierce pride. Martha Williams, a quality control inspector who had been at Tesla since the early days, watched the transformation with amazement. "You could feel the energy changing," she recalled. "People started walking differently, talking differently. There was this electricity in the air, like we were all part of something bigger than ourselves, something that was going to change the world. Wall Street began to notice the changes too, but their response was skepticism rather than recognition. When Tesla announced improved production numbers, analysts dismissed them as temporary fluctuations. When the company reported reduced cash burn, they called it financial manipulation. The narrative had been set. Tesla was dying, and no amount of evidence to the contrary would change their minds. But the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. Model 3s were rolling off the production line in increasing numbers. Quality metrics were improving dramatically. Customer satisfaction scores were reaching record highs. And most importantly, Tesla's cash reserves were stabilizing for the first time in years. The moment when everything changed forever occurred on a seemingly ordinary Thursday evening in late June. Musk was reviewing production reports in his makeshift office, a card table set up next to the assembly line, when his manufacturing director burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement and disbelief. "Elon," he stammered, barely able to contain himself. "We just hit 5,000. 5,000 Model 3s in a single week. We actually did it. We hit our target." The news spread through the factory like wildfire. Workers abandoned their stations and gathered around the production boards, staring at numbers that had seemed impossible just months before. Some laughed with relief. Others cried with joy. A few stood in stunned silence, unable to process that their impossible dream had suddenly become reality. But this was just the beginning of Tesla's resurrection. The weekly production milestone became a monthly achievement, then a quarterly triumph. By the end of the third quarter of 2018, Tesla had produced and delivered more vehicles than any previous quarter in company history. The financial metrics told an even more dramatic story. For the first time since its founding, Tesla had achieved sustained profitability. Wall Street's reaction was swift and brutal. The same analysts who had predicted Tesla's collapse scrambled to revise their estimates. The short sellers who had bet billions on the company's failure watched in horror as their positions evaporated. Tesla's stock price didn't just recover, it soared, doubling, then tripling, wiping out short positions worth over $8 billion. Jim Chanos, the legendary short seller who had proclaimed Tesla the biggest bubble in market history, found himself explaining to investors how he had lost hundreds of millions betting against Musk's vision. "We underestimated the power of narrative," he admitted in a rare moment of humility. "Tesla isn't just a car company, it's a movement, and movements don't follow traditional financial logic." The transformation wasn't just financial, it was cultural. Tesla's workforce, forged in the crucible of near bankruptcy, emerged with the confidence of veterans who had survived an impossible war. They had proven to themselves and the world that ordinary people, united by extraordinary purpose, could achieve miracles that defied every prediction and probability. Maria Gonzalez, the battery technician who had once worried about explaining Tesla's demise to her children, now brought those same children to the factory on weekends, proudly showing them the cars they were helping to build. "This is where Mama helps save the planet," she would tell them, pointing to the endless line of Model 3s. "This is where dreams become real." The global implications of Tesla's resurrection extended far beyond one company's financial recovery. The entire automotive industry was forced to acknowledge that the electric vehicle revolution was not just inevitable, but already underway. General Motors announced plans to go all electric by 2035. Ford committed $50 billion to electric vehicle development. Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, every major automaker suddenly found themselves scrambling to catch up to a company they had dismissed as irrelevant just months earlier. Environmental advocates who had watched Tesla's struggles with growing despair suddenly found new hope. If Tesla could survive its darkest hour and emerge stronger, perhaps the fight against climate change was not hopeless after all. Orders for Model 3s poured in from around the world, from customers who wanted to be part of the revolution that had almost died on a factory floor in Fremont. The technological innovations born from Tesla's crisis would ripple through industries for decades to come. The manufacturing techniques developed during those desperate weeks, the marriage of human determination and mechanical precision, became the foundation for a new generation of American manufacturing. Business schools began teaching case studies about Tesla's turnaround, analyzing how a company on the brink of bankruptcy had transformed itself into one of the world's most valuable corporations. But perhaps the most profound impact was on the hundreds of workers who had lived through Tesla's near-death experience. They carried with them a knowledge that few people ever acquire, the absolute certainty that the impossible is merely the untested. They had seen their leaders sleep on a factory floor, had worked beside executives with bleeding hands, had watched a company rise from the ashes through nothing more than collective refusal to accept defeat. Elon Musk himself emerged from the experience fundamentally changed. The visionary entrepreneur who had entered the crisis with boundless optimism exited as something more, a leader who had been tested by fire and forged into something harder and more resilient. The hollow exhaustion in his eyes was replaced by a quiet confidence born of surviving the unsurvivable. In interviews following Tesla's miraculous turnaround, journalists would ask Musk about the secret to the company's resurrection. His answer was always the same. There was no secret. There was no magic formula. There was only the decision to never give up, even when giving up seemed like the only rational choice. We faced the full power of Wall Street's skepticism, the contempt of our competitors, the doubt of our own employees, and we chose to fight. That's all. We chose to fight. Today, as Tesla stands as one of the world's most valuable companies, that factory floor in Fremont holds a different energy. The machines still hum with the same mechanical precision, the workers still focus intently on their tasks, but there's an underlying confidence that wasn't there before. Everyone who walks through those doors knows they're part of something that survived the impossible, something that changed the world by refusing to die. The sleeping bag that Musk used during those crucial weeks has been preserved in Tesla's corporate archive, a humble reminder of the moment when a CEO chose to fight alongside his workers rather than above them. New employees hear the story during their orientation, learning that at Tesla, leadership isn't about maintaining distance from problems, it's about getting so close to the solution that you can smell the motor oil and feel the vibration of the machines. Wall Street learned a costly lesson about the power of human determination over financial prediction. The analysts who had written Tesla's obituary were forced to acknowledge that some companies transcend traditional metrics, that some leaders operate by rules that don't appear in business school textbooks. The short sellers who had bet against Tesla's survival lost not just money, but credibility, proving that sometimes the market's wisdom is actually collective blindness. The story of Tesla's battle against Wall Street has become a modern business legend, but its deeper truth transcends corporate success metrics. It's a story about the human capacity to endure, to persist, to find strength in the very moments when strength seems impossible. It's about the choice between comfortable surrender and uncomfortable victory, between accepting the verdict of experts and writing your own destiny. As Tesla continues to grow and expand into new markets, as it builds factories on different continents and develops new technologies that seemed impossible just years ago, the spirit of those desperate weeks in 2018 remains its driving force. Every new challenge is measured against that ultimate test of survival. Every seemingly impossible goal is compared to the miracle of producing 5,000 Model 3s in a single week when everyone said it couldn't be done. The lesson extends far beyond Tesla's factory walls. In boardrooms and startups around the world, entrepreneurs facing their own moments of crisis remember Elon Musk's decision to sleep on a factory floor. They remember that sometimes the difference between failure and extraordinary success is nothing more than the refusal to accept that failure is inevitable. They remember that the experts who predict your doom might be experts, but they're not prophets. This is the true power of resilience, not the absence of fear or doubt, but the decision to continue despite fear and doubt. It's the understanding that the most important battles are won not by those who never fall, but by those who always get back up, who sleep on factory floors when necessary, who choose fight over flight when the odds are impossible. The next time you face your own Wall Street, your own army of experts telling you that your dream is impossible, remember the summer of 2018 in a factory in Fremont, California. Remember that miracles are not supernatural events, they're the natural result of supernatural determination. Remember that your own sleeping bag moment might be the beginning of your greatest triumph. What impossible dream are you ready to fight for? What comfortable surrender are you ready to replace with uncomfortable persistence? What expert opinion are you ready to prove wrong through sheer force of will? The factory floor is waiting for your own moment of choice, between inevitable defeat and improbable victory. If this story ignited something deep in your soul, if it reminded you that impossible is just an opinion, then help us spread this message of resilience. Hit that like button, it truly makes a difference for our channel's growth. Share this video with someone who's facing their own impossible moment, someone who needs to remember that Wall Street doesn't get the final word on dreams. But most importantly, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We're publishing new inspiring stories like this one every single day. Stories of visionaries who refused to surrender, of underdogs who defeated giants, of moments when human will triumphed over expert opinion. Don't miss out on these cinematic journeys of transformation. Tell us in the comments below. What's your own Wall Street? What expert opinion are you ready to prove wrong? What video would you like to see next? We have stories about SpaceX's impossible rocket landings, about PayPal's battle against banking giants, about Neuralink's quest to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence. The stories that prove impossible is just the starting point for the truly determined. This video was crafted with passion and dedication by Luca McCung. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through one of the most dramatic corporate battles in modern history. Thank you for believing that sometimes, just sometimes, David really can defeat Goliath, when David refuses to accept that defeat is inevitable. The revolution starts with the refusal to quit, and it continues with your subscription. The factory floor is calling. Are you ready to answer?